With over 4,400 votes casted on our poll a couple of weeks ago, you guys have decided who the top 10 Jedi that survived Order 66 are based on their popularity among the fanbase. Also, a heads up, there will be major spoilers for the Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels TV shows as well as the Republic comic series. At number 10 with 102 votes is Asha Hett. Having a far more unique introduction of the Jedi Order than most, Asha Hett originally spent much of his childhood and teenage years within the Tusken tribes of Tatooine. His father was once a Jedi Knight who exiled himself to the deserts of Tatooine, eventually taking over the Tusken tribes as he believed it was his responsibility to both lead them for their own survival while also minimizing the harm they did to the local inhabitants of the desert planet. As a result, Hett was raised with both Jedi and Tusken tribe traditions, later becoming an apprentice of his father, who taught him the ways of the Force. Hett's formal inclusion to the Jedi Order happened following the death of his father and the destruction of his Tusken tribe during a conflict that involved the Hutt clans. He was originally taken in as Ki-Adi-Mundi's apprentice, but later was transferred to the Dark Woman, who believed she was a better fit to the unique Padawan. Despite now being within the Jedi Order, Hett still remained clothed in traditional Tusken masks and coverings. While for the most part he fit in within the Jedi quite easily, he did have a special relationship with Anakin Skywalker. Both him and Anakin were brought to the Jedi Order around the same time, and because of this, Hett was one of the very few people young Anakin could relate to during his early years within the temple. However, due to the missions Hett was called upon, the two natives of Tatooine barely saw each other up until the start of the Clone Wars. Like most Jedi around his age and rank, the now knighted Hett was made into a general during the Clone Wars. He was eventually assigned a mission alongside a far different Anakin from the one he once knew as a kid. During this mission, he learned of the Chosen One's slaughter of a Tusken village out of a fit of rage. Hoping to ease his unsettled comrades' emotions, Hett, for the first time, removed his Tusken coverings to reveal his human appearance, to show Anakin that he was a human just like him, despite his savage heritage. From then on, he would remain without his Tusken coverings. When Order 66 was issued, Hett was involved in the siege of Salu Kami. After cutting down the clone troopers that were assigned to execute him, Hett believed he was among the only survivors of the Jedi Order. Having nowhere else to turn to, he returned home to Tatooine to reclaim his Tusken heritage. He became a Tusken warlord like his father before him, leading his people to reclaim the sands of Tatooine they believed were rightfully theirs. One day, Hett and his army came across a small moisture farm that was guarded by the Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi. Sensing that Hett was close to the dark side, and having sworn to defend Luke at all costs, Obi-Wan was forced to engage against Hett, who refused to halt the attack. Obi-Wan not only beat Hett in their duel, but he humiliated the man by unmasking his face, which was considered the biggest insult one can do in Tusken culture. So his tribe left him and Hett was forced to leave the planet after agreeing to do so with Obi-Wan, who spared his life in exchange. Hett became a bounty hunter, but was later captured by the Yuzhang Vong, which experimented on him. Following that, he turned to the dark side and became Darth Krayt, becoming the ruler of a future new Sith Order that would adopt the Rule of One philosophy. Based on the comments, many of you voted for Asha Hett due to his unique and long-lasting story, where he went from being a Tusken warrior to Jedi Knight and eventually a Sith Lord. His dual-wielding lightsaber style and ability to go up against some of the best duelists of his era were also among the other reasons people voted for him. At number 9, with 105 votes, is Maris Brood. As a Zabrak Padawan of the Jedi Order, Maris Brood was trained in isolation on a starship alone with her master. Due to this seclusion, when Order 66 was given, they were left alive. Having sensed the disturbance in the Force caused by the deaths of fellow Jedi, Brood's master went out to investigate to see what happened, only to later give a final message to his Padawan to warn her that the Sith had taken over and killed everyone. Brood almost fell to the dark side in an attempt to avenge her master and the Jedi Order, but was intercepted by Shaak Ti, who was able to convince the young Zabrak to come with her to Felucia. There, she and Shaak Ti lived among the native jungle Felucian tribes for around the next 15 years. At some point, Darth Vader's Sith assassin Starkiller came to the planet and killed Shaak Ti, resulting in Maris Brood to completely fall to the dark side. She would later kidnap Senator Bail Organa, who was on Felucia attempting to recruit Shaak Ti, but would lose her hostage after being defeated and spared by Galen Marek, who had his own uses for the Alderaan senator. Her fate after being allowed to live is currently unknown. From the comments, it appears most of you voted for her because of her unique Guard Shoto lightsaber hilts, as well as for her unorthodox fighting style. At number 8 with 114 votes is Kakruk. He was a Wyfid Jedi Master and is best known for just refusing to die. In his first battle of the Clone Wars, he was believed to have been killed, only to return back to the Jedi Order shortly afterwards. The same thing happened with his fight against General Grievous on Hypori, where he was believed to have been killed, but instead, when his body is greatly injured, it goes into a deep hibernation state, giving the appearance of death. During hibernation, he is able to fully recover in a few weeks. Following his survival of Order 66, Kakruk came across a group of Jedi younglings and Padawans, to which he took with him on an uninhabited planet and protected them for the entire Jedi Purge era. Kakruk lived long enough to join Luke Skywalker's new Jedi Order, becoming a master within the Temple of Yavin 4. The Wyfid even lived past Luke, becoming a senior member of the new Jedi Council during the era of the rule of one Sith, as they made their appearance within the galaxy. Kakruk was mainly voted for being essentially the ultimate survivor among everyone else, surviving not only multiple battles of the Clone Wars and Order 66, but all the other conflicts that occurred decades later, living well into the new Jedi Order era and becoming a High Council member in the process. At number 7 with 142 votes is Kanan Jarrus. As a Padawan of the Jedi Order, Kanan was actually named Caleb Doom. He survived after his master Depa Billaba sacrificed herself during Order 66, leaving Caleb all alone. The following years, he changed his name to Kanan Jarrus as a way to avoid authorities, and he let go of his Jedi past, keeping his lightsaber broken apart and hidden from everyone. He took on many jobs, such as a cargo transporter, but usually quit after a few months as a way to keep on the move. He eventually met Hera and joined her fight against the Empire. They later created the Ghost Crew and became well-known rebels in the Outer Rim. Kanan later began to teach Ezra Bridger to become a Jedi, and he himself later became a Jedi Knight, as he was knighted by a Force Vision Sentinel. His story finally came to an end after he sacrificed himself to save Hera shortly before the liberation of Lothal. Many people voted for Kanan due to his determination to staying alive even after losing everything following Order 66 at such a young age, as well as for his future commitment to training a new Padawan, continuing to do so even when he was blinded later in his life. At number 6 with 157 votes is Quinlan Vos. Serving as an undercover agent for a majority of the Clone Wars, Vos was very essential in his contribution by providing vital intelligence to the Republic that gave them intel of future separatist invasion plans and the like. Quinlan Vos came from a people known as the Kifar, which were uniquely connected to the Force that allowed them to see past events by touching affected objects. He was able to effectively use this power of his during his undercover missions to learn the secrets of his enemies by simply touching objects they had interacted with. His survival of Order 66 differed in both canon and legends. In canon, Quinlan Vos's survival of Order 66 is only assumed, as his name appeared among the Inquisitor's list of names of possible survivors. Seeing how Vos was likely in an undercover mission during the time of Order 66, he wouldn't have had any clones around to attack him, let alone confirm his death or survival. In Legends, however, Quinlan Vos was on Kashyyyk serving as a Jedi General, as he had exhausted his use as an undercover agent by that point. The clones in his company blasted him with a turbo laser cannon from a Juggernaut tank when Order 66 was issued. Vos barely survived and made a run for it within the deep jungles of Kashyyyk, eventually coming to the conclusion that the entire Jedi Order must have suffered a similar fate of betrayal as him. Although initially hoping to avenge the death of his fellow Jedi, Vos soon accepted that such an act would be near impossible for him to accomplish on his own. He ultimately took refuge among the deep jungles of Kashyyyk, where he was protected by a Wookiee tribe that was loyal to the Jedi, where he met up with the woman he served with as an undercover agent, and together they had a son named Corto Vos. Quinlan Vos's story ends there, where he likely spent the rest of his life in hiding with his family among the deep jungles of Kashyyyk. Also, fun fact, Quinlan Vos first appeared in Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, where he can be seen in the background on Tatooine, in which he was on an undercover mission. Later, he came to regret not realizing that Qui-Gon needed dire help of getting off the planet, noting he would have helped his fellow Jedi Master gain access to a ship had he known of his situation. Most of Quinlan Vos's votes came from those who enjoyed his journey from being initially obsessed with destroying the Sith to eventually accepting his destiny to something else, like raising his own son and being with his family. At number 5, with 232 votes, is Shaak Ti. While initially not regarded to be as powerful as many of her peers when she was first seated on the High Council, focusing most of her time on her negotiation and diplomacy skills around that time, Shaak Ti quickly adapted into becoming one of the finest warriors of the entire Order after receiving a full dose of the harsh reality of war during the early stages of the Clone Wars. After recovering from her injuries dealt by General Grievous, Shaak Ti went on to master the fighting style that involved balancing out lightsaber strikes and direct force abilities, while also heavily relying on using the environment to her own advantage, whether it be by using it to directly attack and distract her opponents, or by consuming the life forces of the nearby vegetation to empower herself. By the end of the war, she was likely among the top 5 most powerful members of the High Council, with it not being too unreasonable to argue her position among the top 3, right behind Yoda and Mace Windu. While in canon, she has been stated to have died during the Jedi Temple attack, in Legends, she was able to escape and flee to Felucia. She came across the unsettled Padawan Maris Brood, and was able to convince the Lost Jedi to join her on Felucia. While on Felucia, Shaak Ti covered nearly the entire planet in light side energies, and created a small community of Felucian natives that were solely loyal to her, in preparation for the inevitable confrontation with the Sith. And that day indeed did come when Darth Vader's assassin Starkiller arrived to finish off one of the last surviving Jedi Council members. When their duel started, Shaak Ti initially pummeled Starkiller with her overwhelming force abilities and the strikes from the massive Sarlacc pit that she commanded. Although it appeared Shaak Ti outmatched the Sith assassin, Starkiller's brutal training, experience in killing other Jedi, and most importantly, unbreakable commitment to satisfying his master's will, allowed him to push through the punishment he was dealing against long enough to strike against Shaak Ti to greatly injure her. Whether accepting her defeat or believing her opponent had enough light in him for redemption, Shaak Ti decided to end her own life by throwing herself into the Sarlacc pit right before Starkiller, who for a split second attempted to save her, an act he came to question for a long time afterwards as to why a small part of him tried to save her. Funny enough, when Shaak Ti died, the entire planet had a rapid shift into the dark side to make up for her light side empowerment of Felucia, which unnaturally shifted the energies to the light for too long. As a way to make up for that long imbalance, the planet turned into the other extreme by falling into complete darkness, corrupting nearly every living being on it, including even Maris Brood. Many of you voted for Shaak Ti due to her being one of the last surviving High Council members after Order 66, as well as for her choosing the planet Felucia for her hiding place, becoming the chaotic planet's light-side beacon in the process. At number 4, with 297 votes, is Rahm Kota. During the Clone Wars, Rahm Kota refused to lead an army of clones as he both distrusted them and believed they couldn't be as creative as regular beings for soldiers. This caused him to create his own private militia during the war that included members from planetary security forces, mercenary groups, and freed prisoners of war. This decision of his ultimately saved his life, as when Order 66 was given, there were no clones to attack him. When news of the betrayal came, Kota and his men stole a Republic cruiser and fled into the Outer Rim. For the next few years, Kota amassed a small army and a couple of bases to oppose the new Galactic Empire. He was one of the earliest large rebel cells that openly opposed the Empire by striking their operations within the Outer Rim regions. He attempted to bait Darth Vader to come fight him, who instead ended up sending his Sith assassin Starkiller to go kill Kota instead. Starkiller was successful in defeating the Jedi Master, blinding him in the process, but was unable to confirm his death as the old man fell from the platform they were fighting on. Kota survived and gave up, becoming a drunk for the next couple of months. He eventually was brought back into action by Starkiller, who deceived the Jedi into thinking he was an ally, helping him gather the Empire's allies into one place for them to be destroyed all at once. Eventually, Kota and the other captured rebel leaders were saved by the redeemed Starkiller, now known simply as Galen Marek. After the rescue, Kota remained within the newly created Rebel Alliance and led some of its earliest battles, including the attack on Kamino. He eventually mentored the Starkiller clone who came to his aid following his escape from Vader. Kota remained within the Rebel Alliance up until the Battle of Yavin, where his fate afterwards is currently unknown, though it's likely he died sometime shortly afterwards, seeing how he was not present in any other conflicts after the first Death Star's destruction. Many of Rahm Kota's votes came from people who liked his story and appeared in the Force Unleashed games, as well as for him raising his own army during the Clone Wars, and later using it to fight against the Empire on his own. At number 3, with 314 votes, is Yoda. Serving as the final Grand Master of the old Jedi Order, Yoda was regarded as the most powerful Jedi to ever exist in history up to that point in time. After failing to destroy the Sith Lord Darth Sidious, Yoda fled to Dagobah, where he remained secluded from the rest of the galaxy as his powerful light side presence was covered by the planet's dark side energies. While there, he remained connected to the living Force and was able to communicate and help guide both surviving and forthcoming Jedi throughout the galaxy during the Dark Times. His ultimate final contribution was helping train Luke Skywalker in the ways of the Force, who ended up saving his own father and bringing an end to the rule of the Sith. Yoda got much love for his commitment to guiding other Jedi survivors in the Force throughout the Great Purge after Order 66, and for being the one who trained Luke. He also got votes for the way he survived Order 66, and how he infiltrated the temple to find out exactly what had happened. At number 2, with 929 votes, is Obi-Wan Kenobi. Given the daunting task of training the believed Chosen One at a very young age, Obi-Wan was given perhaps the greatest responsibility of any other Jedi of his era. When the Clone Wars erupted, Obi-Wan was made into a High General and given command of the 3rd System Army of the Republic, which included the 212th Attack Battalion. The amount of punishment Obi-Wan faced during the war was second to none, as he survived multiple brutal confrontations from the Separatists' most powerful minions, including Ventress and Dirge. He also survived multiple deadly explosions, like the Coruscant Administrative Sector terrorist attack, and the extreme torture and imprisonment at the hands of Ventress. At first, the Sith wished to turn Obi-Wan to the dark side, believing he'd be a useful asset to them, but eventually decided his commitment to the Jedi was too great for him to betray it. As the war progressed, Palpatine went out of his way to stage Obi-Wan's invasion plans in order to have the Jedi Master get killed, believing his death would have helped Anakin's fall to the dark side, which is why Obi-Wan encountered the Jedi Slayer General Grievous so many times across the war, as Palpatine was hoping the cyborg general would be able to kill Anakin's master once and for all. But Obi-Wan was too much of a beast to die like that, and actually ended up killing the injured General Grievous late in the war. When Order 66 happened, Obi-Wan survived the impact blast from the AT-TE mass driver cannon, and later met up with Yoda, where together they learned of Anakin's fall to the dark side. Devastated by his apprentice's fall, Obi-Wan did what he believed was necessary, and sought out to defeat Anakin, in which he was able to gravely injure the fallen Jedi. Following that, Obi-Wan made it his life mission to protect Anakin's son, Luke Skywalker, by overseeing him during his childhood on Tatooine. Eventually, together, Obi-Wan and Luke attempted to bring the stolen Death Star plans to the Rebel Alliance, but were taken in by the Death Star's tractor beam. While aboard the Imperial superweapon, Obi-Wan confronted his former apprentice once again, but this time allowed himself to be struck down, as the Jedi Master believed he would be a far greater help as a Force ghost to Luke than he would have been in the living flesh. Before we reveal number 1, we have a few honorable mentions. First is the Grand Inquisitor, for getting the 11th most votes on the poll. He was originally a Jedi Temple guard, who was eventually swayed to betray the Jedi after hearing Barriss Offee's speech during her trial, as he was among her escort. Second is Ikrit, for having perhaps the most epic Order 66 survival story of any Jedi, where he literally slept through the entire thing on Yavin 4. He also slept through the whole Clone Wars as well, only waking up about 40 years later after being discovered by a few of Luke's students. The final honorable mention is Empato Geos Brand, who after surviving grievous injuries following Order 66, was able to become a king on an entire planet, bringing his Jedi ideals into how he ruled his people. Finally, at number 1, with 1,103 votes, is Ahsoka Tano. She was the Jedi Padawan of Anakin Skywalker, who ultimately left the Jedi Order following a false accusation from the Jedi Council, who believed she was involved in the attack on the temple. Despite this, she later returned to help the Republic during its invasion of Mandalore, to which she confronted Maul. While the full details of this confrontation are not entirely out, as it's likely it would be fully shown to us in the upcoming new season of the Clone Wars, we do know that when Order 66 was issued during that Republic siege, she escaped with the help of Captain Rex. They later faked their deaths, with Ahsoka burying her original lightsabers. She was later hunted by an Inquisitor known as the Sixth Brother. She was able to kill him and then took his red lightsaber crystals, purified the crystals with the light side, and they became white as a result, which she continued to use from then on in her new lightsaber hilts. She eventually met with Bail Organa and joined the Rebel Alliance, taking the codename Fulcrum, to which she was tasked in recruiting and connecting active Rebel cells. Later, she fought Darth Vader and found out that he used to be her old master, Anakin Skywalker. During their duel, Ahsoka was pulled into the World Between Worlds realm by Ezra, who likely pulled her into the future as well by bringing her into his present. She was allowed to return back to the normal galaxy. She was eventually able to leave the planet and meet up with following the defeat of the Empire. Together, they made it their mission to find Ezra after he disappeared following the liberation of Lothal. Ahsoka got many votes for how she survived Order 66 by faking her death with Rex, as well as for always fighting for what she believed was right, and for helping build up the early foundation of what would eventually become the Rebel Alliance that went on to fight against the Empire. Thanks for watching this video. Help support the channel by becoming a member on our Patreon page, and be sure to subscribe for more videos like this one. And as always, may the Force be with you.